I can hear you. Really?
Yeah, let me see. Okay, and with that, we should be live. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I am Bunsert, and as usual, I'm once again joined with Peter Knight. How are you doing?
Very well, thank you. I was just saying I'm doing a million and one things, including some house renovations and gardening and as well as the day job. So it's all a
Yeah,
bit rushing around like a maniac at the moment. How
yeah,
about
yeah.
yourself?
Doing all right. Same thing. Doing 101 things at the same time. Did get a new shelf closet today, a metal one, for
Uh,
my board game. So very happy with that. It's completely asymmetrical with uneven spaces, but it works surprisingly well.
Good.
So yes, I'm very happy with that. It's a closet that I wanted to have for a long time, and this time it was on sale. So yes, I now I had to take it. So
Entirely
no,
fair. Entirely fair.
yeah, yeah. So let's see. Do we have some domestic updates? Well, as usual, we still are preparing the Kickstarter. I don't have a launch day for it yet. However, the pre-launch page is already up. It hasn't grown for quite a while now, but no, not many folks have arrived. It's usually quiet, but thank you for being here, Kalavi. I haven't seen you around for a while, so glad you're here. And yeah, well, I mean, we've got some wonderful art for Enwin coming up. Yeah, I'm afraid that Enwin might actually become more popular than the Association of Ishtar itself as a concept, because it's a very cute story, and also the drawings by Johan Alexander. I might put one up in a moment. Actually, are just bloody adorable, and yeah, and then they helped. They already helped some people through some difficult spots. It's one of those times where a lot of people are getting sick and stuff. It's a shame. But yeah, that's how it goes, I suppose. And with that, do I have anything to talk to? I've got so many stuff running around in the background. I'm still waiting for a lot of updates to see if things are gonna happen or not gonna happen. Um, we'll see. We'll see. And yeah, Peter, you had a subject for today that you wanted to talk about.
I did. Well, I've got audiobooks, which I wanted to have a chat with you about this evening, and I also wanted to pick your brains about going to events and selling your products. Because a friend of mine who I'm trying to entice to come onto the show, a chap called Dr. Jeff, who writes the Fetish Man comics and does a steampunk sort of sideline. I was chatting to him recently. He's a fellow resident of Leeds, and he was encouraging me to go to the.
Oh, you're breaking up. What happened? Um, okay. I lost Peter. So let's see. He's reconnecting, I think. Oh, are you there? Oh, your sound is gone. Is it on my side? No. I don't hear you anymore, Peter. What happened? Can you hear me? Not if you can hear me. Okay. Let me check if it's not on my end. Real quick. Let me see. Where can I check this real quick? Let me see. Can I
Can you
check
hear
this?
me? Not if you
Okay,
can hear
no.
me.
Okay, my sound system works. Um, But yeah, let me see. We've got some chats. Nightly Gaming, just been busy with surfing on the internet, Mr. Bonside. Plus, this topic felt intriguing to give me a recent craze on AI. The AI got him. Well, who knows? Who knows? Um, so now AI. Let me just talk about that for a little while, because I have been experimenting with AI, but I also have some, well, not so much gripes with AI as a concept, but more as how people are dealing with it. Especially when it comes to the steampunk aesthetics. Allow me to go on a rant for that for a little bit. But you see now there's going to be more and more pushback in steampunk groups as well, so I'm very happy about that. But a lot of people got their hands on AI image technology. Um, Now, into itself, it can be a good tool. Yeah, okay, okay. I'll see you in a moment, Peter. And what do I say about that? Is that it produces a lot of junk, like actual junk, just where people generate image AIs with some search prompt and just plump it on there. How is that? What? Still no. Let me see. Is it on my end? Is it my voice settings? Can you say something? Okay, still no sound. Still no sound, I think. No. Man, Discord did add a lot of noise speakers, but the thing is, you sounded just fine a minute ago. So I don't understand what happened there. Maybe you have to restart your computer. Maybe, yeah, I think that if it doesn't help, then I really don't know. So yeah, a lot of people have been throwing up a lot of AI imagery with no editing. Just, oh, I've got a nice picture of a steampunk lady, and they have been flooding Facebook groups with that. So when you this does not like streaming services. Usually, this is the first time I have this particular problem. So, but yeah, I'm not. I mean, Discord should not even be aware that I'm using a streaming thing right now. So, but yeah, so there's a lot of AI generated imagery that's just flooding places, even DeviantArt, which I'm very upset about, because I come from DeviantArt for the original art, and then all of a sudden you have this page, and like maybe 80% is just AI generated. Now on DeviantArt there are actually some good AI artists, but most of it is, well, not good. Like, they've got octopus. The characters have like things like octopus hands, or you can just see um, all those obvious flaws. That the moment you look more than 1 or 2 seconds, you see all these errors in there, and that's an issue. But yeah, the steampunk community isn't the only one affected by this phenomena. Yeah, probably not. But in particular, because, and I said this in my latest video on steampunk characters, is that steampunk is a niche. It's a very small niche. And as a result, and because people have, AI does not understand steampunk. And I wanna do like some type of rant on this, but you're muted, Peter. But there, steampunk as a concept, it's really a creator's playground. Steampunk and genres, they come together organically. How are you doing, Peter? Still no sound. Why is that? I don't know. Do I have? No, I do not have Discord open twice. Nope. Nope. And let me see. Okay. Nope. And my speaker systems is working. So No, something happened. Can you look at your own settings? Maybe when that stuff happened, when you dropped out, that your settings been changed or something. Um, but to continue my rant is that steampunk and the steampunk aesthetic and the steampunk genre are really a creator's thing. Yeah, I think he's already reset it on my end. You know what? Let's try that. You can still hear me. You just lose me just a moment. Okay. Now I'm gonna join the call again. Peter, can you?
Yeah.
Yes.
Well,
Okay. So it was. Okay, that was interesting. All right, we're back. Okay, I gotta
yes.
remember that. I gotta remember that. Um, but yeah, to finish my little rant there, that the steampunk aesthetic and the steampunk genre in particular are really came together organically. There was not one person who came up with it, although we recredit it with the guy who wrote the Difference Engine, William Gibson and Sterling. But they came up with the name of something that already existed, you know, and that there because of video essayists on the internet and how people discuss genre and genre writing, in particular high concept. I cannot stress this enough. Um, People have this very limited, very compartmentalized view of genre and the creative process. In particular in fantasy. I mean, talk about a lack of innovation. It's called fantasy, but it's not very fantastical, if you know what I mean. It's very set in its tropes, and yeah, and kind of the steampunk aesthetic and the costume community in particular also very set in those tropes. They cannot imagine anyone else creating steampunk. Like, I've literally had comments from people saying that, you know, no one outside of outside the steampunk costume community reads steampunk, um, which just blows my mind. I think that 90% of the people who read my stuff are not. Well, more than 90% certainly are not members of the costume community, and 90% and the majority of those people are not in particularly enamored with steampunk. For many, especially among my reviewers, many of them, my work was the first steampunk work they read. But yeah, people have a very, you know, all I think in part it's also because all the steampunk books have the same aesthetic, you know, which is the goths in brown. And I think that's also a problem that a lot of people who write steampunk do not really see it as a genre. They see it as an aesthetic. So you've got a lot of fantasy with steampunk themes. And that's also in part why I created my series, because I kind of wanted to show, like, well, this is also a way of writing. And what I notice in particular when writers are trying to write stuff for my universe, and well, Peter hasn't tried it yet, but some others have, like, they start with character. But that's not how you can write Association of Ishtar stories, because they're not about characters, they're about concepts. So you start with a monster or a technology or a idea for a world, and as you develop that, you develop the characters to explore those ideas with. But yeah, oh, there's a cat caught in my curtain there. But yeah, Peter, do you have anything to add to that?
No, I think you make good points. It's as I've said to you before, I tend to think of steampunk as being many things. On the one hand, you have a lot of steampunk, which is pure fantasy. It revolves around sort of magic and storytelling that you it's never really explained. The why is never really explained, or more accurately, the how is never really explained. So you just have certain things that exist. You have magical people, you have magical places, you have artifacts, you have spells, and all that kind of stuff. But then at the same time, one of the unusual things about steampunk is you also have some branches of steampunk which are very science fiction oriented,
Yeah.
and as a consequence, that's all about. There might be sort of fictional science in there, so there could be fictional materials or fictional energy sources or technologies, but they're sort of related to the technologies that we know, and because of that, that then allows us to go down a different sort of what if. What would life be like if there was a more rarefied version of helium that allowed airships to be built that could carry colossal weights with much smaller sort of gas envelopes to hold them aloft. You know, what would it be like if ether wasn't sort of a branch of science that has been disproved? What if that's actually, dark matter as we think of it today? What if it's an almost boundless source of energy that could be tapped into in some way? And as a consequence, like, you get these two sort of very, very different sort of branches of steampunk. You get the one where, and you get the cosplay and people sort of, dressing up as steampunks, liking both. But you get some that are all about, fairy wings and magic and sort of devices that just are devices, magical amulets and the like. And you get the others where, somebody might create a steampunk gun out of, washing up liquid bottles and, bits of wood and brass and whatever else. But behind it, if you talk to them about it at an event, there's a fantastic sort of backstory of what it is, what energy it uses, you know, what creatures it's useful against and what creatures it's useless against. And I think that for me is one of the things that makes the genre absolutely amazing. It's you can see some in it. You see, talk to some folks, and it's their imagination is far more on the magical side. And you talk to other folks, and their imagination is far more on the sort of the scientific, what if sort of almost
Hmm.
sort of maker side of things.
Yeah.
So yeah, so it's a bit of a hybrid, and that I think for me is one of its strengths. But it's also one of the things that makes it a little bit more difficult for a lot of folks to understand. Um,
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm trying. I want to. I was. We were talking about vehicles, and I also put it in the thumbnail of this thing. Kalavi makes a statement. I talked a lot about this game during streams. Actually, Arcanum of Steamworks and Magic, which is made by the company who made the original Fallout games. I think it's even older than the Fallout games. Um, but Steampunk Game, a fantasy world, big type, dominating magic in terms of it. I forgot the full name, but I think it's called Arcanum. Yeah, but that's an interesting comparison because it's a fantasy world with magic and all that stuff. But the way how the themes of the world are presented is really steampunk, where magic kind of represents the old order and technology in the new order. Where you had an old elite with where you had the nobility depending on powerful magical creatures like dragons, and you had sorcerers relying on magic. But then, like, through technology, the mundanes, as it were, became more powerful. The cities became more important. Industry became more important, and all that stuff. Um, so yeah, it has a lot of really steampunk themes, but um, well, I wanted to say maybe it would have been better if they left the whole magic thing out of it, but then again, no, probably not, because actually they did a lot of clever things with it. Unfortunately, the game is on modern systems is broken as hell. So it's unplayable for me at least. I mean, every time my save games got corrupted, so it's at some point I just gave up. But yeah, it's a very interesting. It's one of those games where I'm like, okay, I guess it still falls technically under Gaslamp Fantasy, but its themes are very cyberpunky in that way. So it's a very interesting genre wise. Um, but yeah, that said, you mentioned that there are people who like fantasy, there are people who like science fiction, there are people who like both. It's also kind of like the difference between people who love Star Wars and people who love Star Trek.
Yeah,
In
yeah.
my day,
It's
that was like you were either Star Wars fan or you were a Star Trek fan. I was back then basically on the Star Trek side. Now Star Trek is also just fantasy in space at this
yeah.
point, because they don't know how to handle high concepts in Hollywood. So
Tragically,
yeah, tragically, which is a shame. So
it is. Yeah, I mean, it's. I mean, I would like to sort of look at things and look at the division between fantasy and science fiction as I suppose in Stephen Hawking's terms, sort of magic is what was the saying? Magic is the epitome of sort of lost science or something. I can't remember what the exact phrase was now. But to any sufficiently advanced society, or to any society, any other society that's sufficiently more advanced, will seem to be magical in the way that they do things.
yeah.
So you
Oh,
could take
are
the
you talking about Clark Tech?
yeah, yes,
Yeah, that's not Hawking's. That is a technology that advanced. It's indistinguishable from magic. Yeah,
that's the one. Yeah,
yeah.
there's a Stephen Hawking's version as well, where I can't remember what the exact phrase is now, but it's the same thing. It's and you could sort of take the view that the magic that it takes place in some sort of steampunk stories is just it's science based, but the science is never explained. But
Hmm.
I think there's actually more to it than that. I think fantasy at its heart is just not concerned with how things work. What the mechanism is behind it. That's not part of the story.
Hmm.
And I really like reading fantasy as well. I've got to be in the mood for it. I like science fiction much more of the time, but I do still enjoy, a good fantasy story. And when I'm in the mood for it, yeah, I don't want it to sort of go off and try and explain how the magic works or how the mystery,
Hmm.
isn't really a mystery. That's just sort of the nature of the story.
Hmm.
So yeah,
Well, it's
so
one of those. I mean, the question is interesting, but the answer is stupid type of things.
yeah,
Um,
yeah, precisely. I mean, it's as for the high concept, as opposed to telling stories through the characters. Again, that's another classic division with science fiction, or with a lot of science fiction. It's very much focused on the high concept, and the characterization and the characters very much, are secondary. And I think we see that with things like, the Foundation series,
mhm.
which there's the Apple adaptation of it at the moment, which in the original stories, all the characters from the start of the story are dead within a few chapters because time has moved on by hundreds, if not thousands, of years. And that's clearly something they've had to change for the Apple adaptation. They've had to create these characters that persist through time in order to make the story a bit more approachable for people that aren't as interested in the high concept science fiction side of things. So, which again, I get, it's. I love high concept and will quite happily read it from dawn till dusk. But I appreciate, if that's not your cup of tea, then yeah, that's fine. So
Well, yeah. I mean, the trick of good high concept is that people do not realize they're reading or watching high concept. That's kind
yeah,
of the problem. Like I tried watching Sense8, which is a series made by the people who did the Wachowski brothers or sisters or
mm,
whatever. And I watched the like first 15 minutes and it was like, oh my god, the French love their high concept, but they're also terrible at it. You know, and yeah, that I was like, no, I'm not gonna bother with this. Sorry, but there are
yeah.
people who love it, but yeah, I don't think they care about the concept itself, to be honest. So yeah. But yeah, this is the quote I think you meant, Kalavi, and it's yeah, it's not the same as magic. That's an interpretation people often use. Oh, why not use magic in steampunk? And it's like, well, that's not what that quote means.
Yeah.
And a matter of fact, for the Association of Ishtar, this is actually a very relevant quote because it's actually the inspiration for Igraine, the main character of Bo. Well, she's not the main character of The Wrench in the Machine, but she's the main character for many of the upcoming books. Um, but yeah, her culture, the concept behind her civilization, where she comes from, is based on this, where the characters think that their technology is magic. Um,
Yeah.
so so yeah, that's actually a very important thing, but it's often used as, oh, there is no distinction between magic or technology or some nonsense like that. But no, that's not what that is supposed to mean. Um, yeah. Oh
Yeah.
God,
Yeah.
Frostpunk is one of the best steampunk games and probably one of the best steampunk settings. And yeah, there also you've got fantastical technology called Steam Cores, which is pretty much magical nonsense, but I mean it works for the setting. Um, but yeah, and like you say in the chat, it's sufficiently grounded. You know, we know what it does, we know why it's there, and it just it triggers the suspension of disbelief, which is what
Yeah.
where you should be
And I think
aiming.
that's one of the big sort of distinctions.
Yeah.
It's if you're reading science fiction where things are based on, you know, a sort of pseudoscience or a scientific sort of background, that science is really there to provide limitations and rules to the universe in which the story is being told. And it's very difficult to have a science fiction story which is constrained by those rules, and then to sort of bring in elements that are, just more chaotic or more sort of, random. Whereas one of the things you'll see in fantasy stories a lot of the time, particularly fantasy stories for sort of, young adult or teen, is, the familiar trope of, oh, well, you always have like a special person or two sort of in there that has special powers, and they have sort of theoretical sort of limits, unless they get very cross or very angry or very passionate or whatever else. In which case, all the rules go out the window because they're a special person, and that's kind of the distinction in many ways. Fantasy, anything can happen, and the focus is more on, I suppose, the individuals, the people that are involved. Science fiction, I think, is the world is much more constrained. The rules are more strictly sort of adhered to, and as a consequence, um, makes the storytelling more difficult. But at the same time, for me, certainly a lot of the time, it makes reading that kind of a story or watching that kind of a story more rewarding.
Mm-hmm.
because it isn't just, oh, you get so far, everything looks terribly hopeless, oh, and then a magical MacGuffin happens,
Oh,
and
yeah. Well, you
you
have
know,
far more liberties in the plot, yeah.
yeah.
Because
So
in case of high concept, you can have a story have a bad ending. Um,
oh yes,
and you can't do that in low concept because it's all about that character, becoming stronger, more powerful, or overcoming his or her weaknesses. And you can have that in high concept. It's like the characters are kind of intended to be, we're gonna explore this world and its ideas, and the character just happens to be in that situation. It's often a normal guy, it often does not have any special things. Often he's just, some working stiff, who,
yeah,
just comes across a problem set in that world. And with high concept, or sorry, low concept stories with the hero's journey, especially in fantasy, they always have to be somebody special. They gotta have like the special powers, as you mentioned. And yeah, it needs to have a good ending because you're following this one character from the beginning till the end. And if you then something bad happens to that character, it's gonna be very unrewarding, or you're setting up a character to win and then he loses. What, you know?
yeah, precisely, and again, it's sort of, there's lots of sort of examples of this on sort of both sides, but uh, I mentioned sort of the sort of the Foundation sort of series just, but you know, another sort of great set of or science fiction that I'm particularly fond of is Stargate and the SG-1 sort of
Mm-hmm.
series that sort of flowed from that, and that started off much more sort of hardcore sci-fi.
Yeah.
The limitations were everywhere. Um, And then later on, it did get a little bit more relaxed as sort of alien technologies that couldn't be readily explained were sort of brought in as essentially sort of magic. And
Mm-hmm.
but it was still sort of, for me, it was still very much it was a very enjoyable sort of um, program and set of series. But yeah, but although the characters were very sort of personable and very interesting. Um, they inhabited a universe that was both familiar and very constrained. And yeah, they did do a couple of things where they had to crowbar in sort of a couple of special events when one of the actors or one of the other actors needed to leave to go and work on another project and then sort of be brought back at another time. But but it was never, sort of more than that. Whereas I think if you look at sort of things like I don't know, the Twilight series, or something like that, then it's a completely different thing. It's trying to think of some of
Anthology
the other.
series. Yeah, you can do whatever the hell you want. Yeah.
Yeah, precisely. It's so yeah, so it's sort of interesting. There are hybrids or sort of fusions that do exist. I don't know if you ever had a go at a desktop role-playing game called Shadowrun.
Yeah, I know.
Uh,
I game mastered it for a while. Yeah.
yeah, it's so yeah, and that's for anybody that's not familiar with it. That's like a near future sort of story where it's sold, or rather
It's
it's
the
set
near
within.
future with magic.
It is, yeah.
Magic
There
comes
is.
back. That's the concept about it. Yeah.
It is precisely. So the technology has advanced a little bit. There are no spaceships or like teleporters or anything like that, but technology has advanced a little bit. So there are advanced cybernetics and the internet as we think of it is far more advanced. But at the same time, there is the magical awakening. So the world is populated. A lot of people suddenly started to mutate on one particular sort of time. and started to become elves or dwarves or trolls, ogres, and so on. And magic came back as well.
Mm-hmm.
So you do have this juxtaposition. And I think the story, the setting, the role, the Shadowrun system is quite well balanced because the magic is on a par with the technology for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
So, well,
Yeah, it's just another tool.
yeah,
So it's just another tool like any other system, which you need in order to overcome the missions. It's quite hard to game master because you actually
yeah,
need to think about, okay, so this corporation has this facility, like how's it protected, how realistic is it that this system like has they've got this special virus that only attacks magic users. However, it also stops magic from working, creating impossible barriers. So they've got like walls that are filled with this virus. So spirits can't come through. So wizards cannot see the insides of it using spirits or whatever. So yeah, but
yep,
it's
precisely.
it's
So,
it, setting wise, it's probably one of my favorite. Yeah, I don't know if is it a fantasy setting, is it cyberpunk setting? It's written as cyberpunk,
yeah,
so and that makes it very interesting for me. Plus, I also love like the crazy stuff they've done with it, and it's also I mean, it's very much like Cyberpunk Edge Runners, which is probably one of my
mm,
favorite Cyberpunk series. Another Cyberpunk series I highly recommend is the first season of Psycho Pass. The second and third season are meh. But the first season is amazing with also an
mm.
amazing villain. Um, but Magic Dystopia, oh, that really does Cyberpunk or Shadowrun a disservice. It's not necessarily even a dystopia. Like some places are like very extreme, but what Shadowrun also does well, it uses a lot of history for inspiration.
Mm.
So there's also a mild steampunk theme to it. Like some are really over the top, like Aztlan, where they brought like the Aztec religion back and perform human sacrifice, and there's all these spirits roaming the land and stuff. So some are really over the top, but I mean I just love the dragons in this setting. It's one of the few settings where like, oh, these dragons are kick ass, but they're also very rare.
Yeah,
Uh, so they, but the one of them rules like has taken over Mercedes Benz. Um, for instance, Dunkelzaan, he
yeah,
also
yeah.
controls like the Europort where I am living. Um, but yeah,
I
it's it's
forgot
def-
that. Yeah,
it's definitely been a big inspiration for my setting. Speaking of RPGs, we are progressing. There's been some movements on the RPG front for our setting. So I really should like organize some writing sessions where people can write the 150 word blurbs, as we discussed on previous streams, um, to pitch high concept. So it's a good exercise at high concept writing. In that regard, and it's also very fun. And yeah, you can like pitch out like 150 word every 15 minutes. So
yeah.
everyone
That
could
sounds
like
good.
easily pitch three story concepts every hour. Well, let's say we make it a stream of 2 hours, so that's like three, maybe four writing sprints of 15 minutes. And yeah, I noticed that a lot of writers kind of like struggle with the high concept, like how you write that. Like they start with a character, and that just does not work. So every time I see a concept offered to me like that, I'm like, you know, um,
Yeah.
it's a kind of an issue. But well, so be it. Well, actually, you wanted to talk about audiobooks, so let's get started a little bit about your
Yeah,
concerns about
yeah.
that.
So, and this is sort of tied in with the question I have about sort of going to events and sort of selling books direct.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah. So during the week, it may have even been yesterday. I'm not sure. I received an email from a company called Drafter Digital, who are one of the distributors that I use to publish my books
Hmm.
through retailers like Apple.
Yeah, they're kind of like an Ingram Sparks.
Yeah, and they've got sort of a very good offering. They will convert sort of manuscripts to sort of sort of publishable format for you. They've got tools for all that kind of stuff. But they're very proactive with it. So they've been working with Apple because Apple have been working on a new tool which will take an existing book and it will convert it into an audiobook.
Okay.
They only provide two voice options at the moment, both of which are American. There's I think it's described as a is it a soprano female voice and baritone male voice. But the reviews of these voices are very positive. They seem very human, and the basic sort of I don't know quite sort of I haven't figured out quite what the um, how long it takes, but Apple have clearly invested a lot of cash into this. So they can just take one of your books. You have to upload all the metadata to go with it. So when it was published and who the rights belong to and all that kind of stuff. A description of the book, a cover, all that kind of thing. But the actual conversion to an audiobook is done automatically for you, pretty much instantly, or certainly within sort of a few hours. And yeah, and then you can publish this book through Apple as an audiobook. Um, they do, or rather, the message I got says something about they do recommend a slightly lower price for these automatically generated audiobooks because you've not had the same upfront costs as are involved with hiring a professional narrator to do this for you. But having said that, it's still one of those things. Audiobooks are one of the areas that is supposedly growing at quite a fast rate. It's also an area where there is a very limited number of texts currently available because it's quite a big cost to record an audiobook using a traditional means. So yeah, so I thought, to me it seems like a no-brainer. I'm almost certainly going to be logging in and converting, sort of at least one book in each of my series,
Hmm.
just to see whether there's any appetite for it. But yeah, but I thought I'd sort of pick your brains, see what you thought of it. Do you like it as a concept? Do
Well,
you dislike it?
well, it kind of. I mean, for me, it would be a boon because I don't read. I cannot sit down and read a book. So, the more audiobooks, the better for me. Um, so there's that. I mean, well, I guess it's gonna be a thing with how the copyright is and what you actually earn. Because of
Yeah.
course, it's Apple is making most money through this way. They are basically taking your copyright and say, well, this is ours now. And they probably also own the AI, so they are then the legal owners of that audiobook. So it really depends on what the terms of service are because I mean if the terms of service are we now own the audiobook and you cannot infringe on that, meaning that I cannot make my own audiobook anymore. Um
No, I think it's quite the opposite. It's as I understand it, you retain the copyright for all the materials for the audiobook. You're not licensing it to Apple in any way. The one condition is that if you use their audiobook tool, then you must publish um, what's created for at least 8 months. via the Apple bookstore. Now you still retain all the rights, so if you want to go off and create an audiobook and publish it somewhere else, you can do. So I know you do a lot of sort of audio work yourself, Bonsart. So yeah, so you could quite happily go off, create your own audiobook and publish that through Amazon or through Ingram Spark or whoever, at the same time that the automatically generated one is being published through Apple. Like I say, the only restriction is that if you're going to use their tool, then you have to publish the book for at least 8 months. Now, I'm sure if there's some very good reason to take it down, then you would be able to, but they might then withhold the ability for you to use that tool again in the future for a certain amount of time. Sort of put you on the naughty step for a year or two. Much like Amazon do.
Is that stated in the thing, or is that your interpretation?
That's my interpretation. I've just got one email about it so far, just talking through the different steps that are involved. But it does very clearly say that the copyright remains with the author. All the licensing remains with the author. It's an expensive tool for Apple to use. It uses a lot of resources, and as a consequence, their expectation is that you will publish anything you create using this tool for at least 8 months with Apple. After that, you can keep it up there if you want to, and you will continue to earn royalties. Obviously, when it comes to, well, possibly not obviously, but anybody that's looked at audiobooks will know that they are generally about 50% more expensive than a paperback. So you're generally talking about 15, 16 euros for a title that would be maybe 10 euros in paperback format. So yeah, now if you split the difference and said that an automatically generated version, you could buy that for 11 or 12 euros, then you could still, as an author, probably make maybe 4 or 5 euros for each sale. So
opposed to
that's
nothing in most cases. So that's kind of the calculation. Yeah. Like you have you're selling an audiobook or you're not. I mean, for 8 months doesn't sound so bad. But do you have to pay advertising for the advertising? I assume so.
No, nothing. You pay nothing up front to create it. You pay
I don't mean up front, but as it goes live, I mean.
No, nothing when it goes live. It's a free service. The only price is that the book that you create must be on sale for at least 8 months.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this is just my reading.
They probably expect you to run ads on that, right?
No, I don't think so. I think it's more a reflection of the fact that there is a massive appetite for audiobooks because they are consumed much more quickly by readers. A friend of mine doesn't read books at all. He just listens to audiobooks, and he listens to them whenever he drives or whenever he's doing something else where he can listen at the same time. And as a consequence, he gets through 20 titles a month. Now, reading 20 paperbacks in a month, we could all do it, but doing it on top of all the other stuff we've got to do,
exactly.
That becomes, I generally speaking, if I can read one paperback in a month, I'm doing quite well. And I do read a lot of other stuff as well, but it's that's just one of the differences. Very few authors publish audiobooks because it's quite expensive to hire a narrator to do that work. And audiobook readers, they consume a lot of titles because you can do it while you're driving, you can do it while you're on the train or on the bus, and Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
I really need to finish the Wrench in the Machine. But I don't know if my books are suitable. I mean, I've got the anthologies right now, but I don't think they are suitable for the audio for automated audiobook because you've got those interviews, for instance. Uh,
yeah.
so that's
One of the limitations they do have is that compendiums and anthologies are not eligible to be used with this at the moment.
no, so they don't even allow that. Yeah, but
No,
yeah, there
it's
are
individual titles.
also somewhat difficult to make for me. I mean, I could make them as YouTube videos. I've definitely considered that. A matter of fact, we are currently experimenting for the trailer of the upcoming Kickstarter. We made 2 comic book pages. Um, so we can then turn them into slides for the video. It looks
Yeah.
amazing, but that's 2 minutes of video. That is, I mean, I'm doing it on the cheap, so let's say €100 a page for 2 minutes. So that's €200 for 2 minutes of entertainment. So if you're making a
Mm.
video of 10 minutes using original artwork, now the pages are specifically made to be, kind of like general vignettes of the world, so they can be recycled. But still, if you want a completely original video of, let's say, arcology,
Mm.
yeah, we're talking about €1,000 a video for a few
Yeah,
hundred
yeah,
views. So
yeah.
yeah. So if you want to support this channel, please go to Ream Stories, where you can subscribe, and you'll get free stories every week, and you'll get access to all our published books for $3 a month. So if you have not already seen it, there are also free stories on there as well. So yeah, if you want to support this show or just read our short stories, please become a follower there. That all by itself will, how do you say, promote or exposure. And it gives so it's kind of like a Patreon for how do you say, authors and readers. But it's far more accessible, and I need to make an adjustment to it that when people pick a higher tier, they can actually download the PDFs. But yeah, I need to do that. But first I need more members on there. So
Yes.
yeah, but it's a
Uh,
brand new platform. There are like a couple dozen offers on there now, and yeah, it's I'm very happy with it because I can automate the entire system.
yeah.
And yeah, insert the channel promotion bit here, yeah. But I got to keep the lights on, and all the money that you give me is all going to my artists. So yeah, you're also helping them, and one of them I'm now talking with a second one, so Johan can focus on the comics, and Enwin for now. And Enwin is looking great, so I'm very very proud of how that's turning out. And yeah, the other one, she wants to become full time illustrator, but I'd love to help her, but I just don't have the income yet
Yeah.
to do it. So yeah, I need to do a lot more conventions. I hope to up my convention game next year a lot because those bring in most of my money right now. And of course, crowdfunding. If you're shilling, let's do the whole thing. You can also follow us on Kickstarter, and please share it with your friends so we may grow there as well. And all the books, it's for the comic series, but it will have all the art in there, all the books in there as well. So even if you're not a comic book reader, we've got plenty of other stuff. And we're gonna do our best to include Enwin in there as well. It's gonna be a bit schizophrenic, but hey, the reactions to Enwin so far have been great, and it also has a lot of art. Every chapter has its own illustration, which I included a black and white version. Johan is gonna shade them as well, and oh, they're so adorable. This is the only one I currently have on my computer, but yeah. So yeah.
Well,
Uh,
that's sort of a good segue, really, into you mentioned doing conventions,
yes, yes.
and I was chatting to an artist friend of mine. When was it last week? And yes, he was encouraging me to go and have a stall at the Steampunks in Space event in Leicester in November, towards the end of November this year.
Mm,
It's been running for a few years. He goes along with his own stall and sells things there, and recommends it as being both very friendly and sort of quite a good place to sort of sell because it's set at the National Space Centre, and anybody
oh.
that pays to go there can also get free entry into the steampunk event.
Mm.
So, having said that, I have never done a convention or an event like that. I've never tried selling books through over a tabletop. So yeah, so I have a couple of questions really.
Okay.
I know you have Bonsot, so I was wondering sort of, you know, do you recommend it?
Yes.
Is it sort of profitable and worthwhile?
Yes.
And what would you say is the sort of what's the minimum that you need to be able to go and do it effectively?
Um. Well, I mean, it really depends on your audience. Like, if it's purely a steampunk audience, in my experience, they don't buy a lot of books, unfortunately. So it also depends, like how much you pay for the stall. How many books do you need to sell to make a profit if you
Yes.
do that? So,
Well, I haven't so far, but I know they typically sell about 400 tickets to the steampunk crowd, and then they'll get sort of more folks on top of that per day, and it will run for multiple days.
mm,
Um, for me, it's within sort of a couple of hours drive, so I could just go down the night before, um,
mm.
um,
So you have
have a
also
stall for
no the
one day.
expenses of travel.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm.
So overnight accommodation, and then, like you say, the cost of the stall. So for me, I would probably have to, sell somewhere in the region of sort of, I don't know, 30 books or something like that.
How many days?
It runs for, I think it runs for either 2 or 3 days. But
Well, if it's 3 days, I think 30 books is manageable.
yeah,
Something that I considered when you brought it up, it's space themed.
yes,
My new comic is space themed, so maybe you could sell some of those with a commission.
yes, yes,
Um,
definitely.
I mean, you want to have several things, so we can arrange that, and we have
Yep.
time. If it was October,
Yeah, end of November.
End
I
of
think it's the
November.
20,
Okay,
23rd of
yeah,
November.
because it will take a couple of weeks. But
Yeah,
okay, we'll discuss that after the show then. But because there is like an audience for books and there is an audience for comics.
yeah,
So some people only buy comics. I noticed. I mean, the first week, the first event I took the comic, I think I sold 10 comics.
yeah.
Um, um, you know, it also depends. Can you offer books as bundles?
Oh yeah, yeah. I've got 3 books in 2 separate series, so I could offer,
So that's
sort of
6 books in
3 books,
total.
6 book. Well, I've got 7 in total. I've got one standalone. I've
Okay.
got an eighth which I'm just about to publish, but I don't think it'll be ready by the end of November. So yeah. But I could say, for example, say you could have rather than a paperback being £10, you could have three books for 25 or something like that if you were to buy them
Yeah,
at
yeah,
the
I mean
event.
that's important because that does make
Yeah,
people. So having bundles is a very good idea. Um, like I say, I combine. I offer my books as a bundle. The Arcology Report of Bound for the Sticks, and the Wrench in the Machine with 321's Notebook. With a small discount, but it's a discount that's like, oh, that works. So
yeah.
that's definitely a thing.
What
I have
what
enough cards.
additional
Huh? Yeah.
what additional things do you take? I know you've got the statues, the bookends. Do you take sort of leaflets, business cards,
Well, I've got
that kind
bookmarks. I've
Yeah,
got, of course, ordinary cards with a QR code on there. So when they scan it, they'll go to my link tree. So they have all the links that I have currently. Um, what also helps is a pop-up banner.
yeah,
Um, so that's very useful to have a good one. And when you are presenting yourself, always mention that you are the author.
yes.
Because people do not associate you with the books as you're just standing there. So that's important. Um, so yeah, cards, pop-up banner, presentation is important. So make sure you've got like a nice little sheet, maybe some models or something that so people don't just come for the books, but also like, oh, that looks really cool. Something that I need is something that moves or something that shines or flashes.
Yeah.
So people like, oh, something's happening over there.
Yes.
Yeah, you know. So
And do you collect newsletter subscriptions while you're there, or
I should, like, I can upgrade my book funnel server so I have more email collection.
yeah,
When they go to my website, after a certain amount of time, like a pop up will pop up saying, you can subscribe to this website. Um, but yeah, email collection is something I really need to do. Yeah, and swapping emails with other authors is also kind of a thing that I need to look into. Do you have an email list?
I do. I didn't for years, but I started one. I started one about 2 years ago and sort of stuck with it for about 10 months, and then abandoned it for a few months, and then I picked it up again about a year ago, and I've stuck with it again this time. And then I have the Substack, which is a different audience. So I've got about 60 odd people in total that are signed up,
Oh wow.
um,
Well, I've got
which
like
is
a fraction of that.
well, I mean, it's one of those sort of things where it's uh, for the longest time it was a much lower number than that,
Mm-hmm.
and it was the usual thing. It was sort of friends and family, you know.
Yeah, yeah, of course.
But Substack, it was very good. I've got sort of 30 odd subscribers there, and then I've got a Mail Munch sort of newsletter that I send out on a monthly basis, which again has got about 30 people on it. So yeah, so it's there, and it I don't know, it does make writing these things easier when you know that there are, and particularly with Substack, you can see. You can with Mail Munch as well. You can sort of see how many people have opened the newsletter, how many have read
Mm-hmm.
it, how
Yeah,
many have
which
clicked on
has that
links.
too. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, all that kind of stuff. So that sort of helps in terms of motivation. I
Mm-hmm.
don't get a lot of sort of feedback from
No, me neither.
readers. Yeah.
Yeah, I
So
mean, I have to like really look into how to grow email things and stuff.
yeah,
That's definitely a thing. I am looking into using a service for the Kickstarter this time. I think they're called Gilo. I forgot God, I've got them in my favorites, I think, somewhere. And they ask like 15% for sales that they draw in. So you pay after instead of in front.
Yeah.
Because for my first one, I used somebody and that didn't do anything. So yeah, again, for the people in chat who have not yet subscribed, please click the link to the Kickstarter in the chat, and please help that page grow because it's not been doing anything for days now, so it's kind of depressing.
Yeah. And
Um,
more generally, I would say, it's like if you like to read sort of book novels, or if you just like to read sort of fantasy and science fiction generally, then I would love to hear sort of um, where you go to sort of find things to read, what kind of things you look for.
mm-hmm.
Um, do you see adverts anywhere, on Facebook or on Amazon
Well,
that are relevant to you? So,
well, I mean, to be true, I a lot of Kickstarters I found through Facebook ads.
yeah,
So yeah, and also through just being on Kickstarter, and then you'll see somebody. Oh, this person has supported this Kickstarter, and this person has supported that Kickstarter. So if
yeah,
you've got friends there, that will do, and that's one of the benefits. Now there's also a European website which I think I'm gonna do. Which what was it called again? Space something. My new artist introduced it to me, and yeah, so that's specifically for the European market. And one of the problems is that I mean, in the United States, everyone has credit card, but in Europe, that's not the case.
yeah. Tell me about it.
So this website is especially made for. God, it's on the tip of my tongue. What is it called? Uh, what was it called? Spaceman Project. Yes,
Yeah.
Spaceman Project.
Okay.
Um, and yeah, why is it in Spanish? I heard 2 or so years ago, sure, you're being hunted. Gonna release a remaster. Sadly, no information about it till this day. I was looking forward to it in any case. Isn't it already remastered though? Didn't they already put out a new version of that game? I mean, are they gonna remaster the remaster? Because I do recall. Okay, yeah, but Spaceman Project is also specialized in comics. So,
Mm,
but yeah, the numbers
that's
look
right.
good that they draw in there. So, yeah, I'm still looking forward to a response of Weird Market. You know that I've been approached by a Spanish convention, right?
You mentioned yes, yes.
Yes.
It's
So I'm still waiting for a response from them.
yeah,
Um, if but well, we'll see. We'll see.
yeah.
I'm also waiting for a thing about a story that I submitted to Iron Age magazine. So we'll see if that continues.
Yes.
Yeah, I expected a response from them yesterday. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's a bit unfortunate, but we'll see. No, but
Well, there seems to be a lot of stuff going on at the moment. It's um yes, I know obviously they've got the floods in Spain and we've got very nice weather here in the UK at the moment, but overly nice weather in other parts of Europe, so who knows?
it's 31 degrees over here. So
Yeah, yeah. It's okay. It's quite nice here at the moment. It's getting up into the mid to high 20s,
well,
which is still sort of quite manageable. But yes, as soon as it gets up to 30, then it's yeah, that's the point when it gets a bit warm to start doing anything. So
it's just I mean the perspiration is always gets me.
yes,
That's one of the main reasons I have the the air conditioning just to stop myself from sweating.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, what I'm looking forward to gaming wise is Frostpunk 2. So
Ah.
I just hope they don't pull. Yeah, did you? There's a rumor going around that a new video game called Grand Theft Auto 6 is gonna launch with $150 price tag.
Wow.
Yeah, um, we'll see. I mean, I think it's just rumor at this point, but
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if they're gonna try something like this. I mean,
Yes. Yes. It's one of the reasons I don't succumb to video games is well, the main reason is a complete lack of willpower. If I start, I'll be up until 2 o'clock in the morning every night trying to
yeah,
figure something out and useless at work the following day. But aside from that, it's yeah, they do seem to be getting increasingly expensive, as do the machines that go with them. So
yeah. Well, they do some great stuff with them these days, but
yeah,
yeah, but
yeah,
yeah. It's also one of the reasons I am not touching Baldur's Gate 3. But some friends of mine just got me back into Borderlands 3, so in that regard, um, but there's still content that I have not. Yeah, Frostpunk devs don't feel greedy as indie companies seem to be reasonable. Yeah, I'm not expecting them to do anything like that. I mean, I know very little about the company, I have to admit, but I'm not expecting them to do anything crazy like that.
yeah,
Um, all right.
yeah, yeah.
Did I answer all your questions about the convention appearance?
You did, yes, yes. It's yeah, it's all very useful. Pretty much what I was expecting. Um, but yeah, it's I'm still not sure I'm going to do it, but I am inclined to. I am seriously thinking about it. It's
Well, it's
uh,
not just. I mean, I think, especially if it's 3 days, I think 30 books is reasonable, especially if you can sell it in packs.
yeah.
But it's tight. Um,
Well, I think I would just be going for one day
okay.
to begin with, just to sort of see what it's like. Because if I go for 3 days, I'll need a hotel for at least 3 nights.
Mm.
And the cost of the store will probably be 3 times as much, all that kind of stuff. So if I go,
Oh
I'm
well,
inclined to go.
usually, well, I don't know how they usually you
Yeah.
rent a table for the whole event.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, I mean, usually, maybe it's different here, but usually you rent a table for the whole event. So
Yeah.
not per day, but per thing, because they know that you need to play even, right?
Yeah.
Especially with books. Do they sell it per 3 feet?
I haven't got the details yet. I mean, I do know, like I say, this friend of
Mhm.
mine, he's been going for a few years. He goes to that one, he goes to the asylum. He does quite a few events, and it's his sort of. He sells a lot of stuff through his website as well, but I think his main source of income is through conventions and events.
Yeah,
So
yeah. I mean,
so I'll be picking his brains at some point. But he's sort of been doing it professionally for quite a few years now.
mhm.
So whether he can remember back to what it was like to start, I have no idea. But yeah, so I'm inclined to sort of go along for, like I say, sort of at least a day.
Mhm.
Um, and if it turns out to be good, I mean, I want to sort of go because I've enjoyed the steampunk events I've been to in the past, and yeah, yeah, this steampunks in space one sounds quite good,
Mhm. Mhm.
and yeah, so I might go down for a day and then just have the option with the hotel to stay overnight and turn it into 2 days. So who knows? But
Yeah.
But I'll be picking a few other brains before I make a final decision because
Mhm.
it will cost sort of a little bit just to get all the materials printed, buy all the stock, all that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
If I take, sort of 20 or 30 copies of each book, then
Well, that's a
you
lot.
know,
I think for I don't know. I think 15 is more than enough. But
yeah,
they'll probably a lot of people will probably buy the first book in one of the series.
yeah,
If you have like 5 or 10 of the later issues, um, yeah. So you gotta have more of the first books than of the later books,
yep,
in my
yep,
experience. Like, and then maybe there might be some idiot who then buys the whole thing in one go. I mean, those are the customers you really want, of course. I had
yeah.
some of
Well,
them in my last event, and that's like, oh my god, that's a lot of money.
I
Um,
know. I mean, it never ceases to amaze me. I look at my figures on Amazon every now and again, and bearing in mind I've not done any advertising for well over a year. I'll still sort of, get sort of a few sales a month, and every now and again I'll get somebody who will come in and just buy. If it's not through Amazon, it could be through Google or Kobo or Barnes and Noble, and you
mhm,
can see that it's an individual who's gone, yeah, I like the look of that. I'll buy the entire series.
mhm.
And they've just gone and bought all three books on the same day at the same time, and yeah, and it's like, well, yeah, it'd be fantastic to have a few more folks like that that are quite clear about what it is they like, and just go, yep, I'll have it all. It's
Yeah, yeah.
but
I have not had that experience yet on Amazon, unfortunately. Um, I mean, yeah, I'm very disappointed. Everyone who comes to my stand, they all want the first book, and I'm
yeah,
trying to say, but the second book is so much better. But it's,
yeah, yeah. It's have you ever been back and re-edited the first book?
yeah, yeah, oh my god, a number of times, a matter of fact. I mean, I
Yeah,
wouldn't mind if someone else does another proofread of it. Um,
yes,
but yeah, I definitely have. And now
yeah,
I'm also experimenting with AI to do the spell checking for me.
yeah,
And that also makes a lot of difference because it does take out a lot of spelling errors. And also spelling software like Grammarly has also improved a great deal since I wrote the wrench in the machine. But it's so
yeah,
painful for me to go back every time to the wrench in the machine and make more adjustments. Um,
yeah.
so I did some minor retconning that I have done, but you know, except for a few like diehard nerds, no one will notice.
Yeah.
Um, but I have not had any complaints about the later editions. So
No, no. Well, I likewise, uh, I decided sort of fairly early on that I would polish the first book. Got a friend of mine to edit it for me, all that kind of stuff. A couple of friends to edit it for me, and I thought it was in pretty good shape. But when I published the second book in the series, I thought, well, I may as well go back and re-edit, and just make sure there's nothing in there that needs to be changed. And yeah, there was a few bits, not a huge amount. The third book in the series, which sort of rounds up. So I write in three-book series. So I've got each of my series so far is just three books, but I'm intending to write another six books in each series. So they are three-part sort of, or nine books in, with the stories sort of flowing sort of between three books. And when I did the third book in my first series, I'd discovered using audio to, getting your computer to read back
yeah, I've
um,
done that too. Yeah,
your
it
text.
really helps. It really helps.
Oh, that was an absolute game changer. I found so many tiny little irritating mistakes in my first book because I was just listening to the text. Things where the sentences were just too long, so I just sort of split them up. So
Hmm.
the content is the same, but it's just it
Reading your
reads.
sentences out loud is extremely important. This is also
Oh,
why during the writing process of Bound for the Sticks, I also recorded the audiobook.
yeah, yeah, brilliant idea. It's just I think you pick up on so much more when you're
You pick
actually
up on
listening
so
to
much
it.
more. I
Yeah,
should actually also do it for Enwin, to be honest.
yeah, yeah,
Um, but yeah, Enwin is a lot of female voices, so
yeah.
I don't know. Like some people were annoyed that I did all different voices for Bound for the Sticks. Some do like it, others do not. You can't win, I suppose. Um, but I'll see what I'll do there. Maybe I'll do record Enwin. I mean, it's not as long as Bound for the Sticks, and it's like what 60,000 words or something. Oh,
Yeah, yeah.
a
It's
proofreader is
but
gonna
at the
be
same time,
going through it, picking up some final mistakes, but
yeah.
yeah.
I mean,
I mean, the proofreader now. This one has been a lot of not all of them, but most of the text has been read over by AI. So
yeah,
she picks up something, but like in comparison to usually the feedback that I get is like minimal.
yeah,
Yeah, including imagery, it's 91 pages, and oh, she's already halfway. Wow.
yeah,
Uh, yeah, it's mostly mistakes that came out of making corrections.
yeah.
You know, like oh,
I
it
know
was
it
the
so
doll, and
well.
then you turn it into Enwin, and then you forget to delete the word the. So, yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
stuff like
Yes.
that. But yeah,
Uh,
like she's halfway through the book and she has like 7 remarks.
yeah.
That's nothing, you know.
It isn't, but and I know it's tempting to think, you can publish these things without doing that, but yeah, I mean, my book now reads so much better.
Yeah.
Like the content's the same, none of the stories changed, the characters haven't changed, anything like that, but just the way that I tell the story, yeah, and the language I use. It's when I started, I was very idealistic about how I wanted to tell the story and how I wanted to write the story, and and I've sort of I've had a few people sort of write to me going, why did you write it like that? It's like and these are all like sort of folks that are passionate about grammar, and they're sort of
Mm.
going, why did you write it using this grammar? I go, well, it's a little bit out of date now. What it is you're talking about? That's the grammar from
Yeah, that's
sort of the
also
40s
some.
and 50s.
It's also because my first short story that I published on my own accord, which was Light in the Dark in the comic S46. I'm now redoing that for the Coscut Girls. I'm
Yeah,
probably gonna remove S36 from the stores at some point, and I'm gonna publish it as a comic anthology, or with a different short story. I have to check. Maybe I'm gonna do a short story that's more focused on the Association of Ishtar as an organization. Maybe I'm gonna do something like that. I don't know yet what I'm
yeah,
gonna do
yeah,
with that one. But yeah, that. But yeah, we'll see. But it clearly has like old stylistic phrases of mine, and somebody read it through and started like
yeah,
noting them. It's like yeah, this is old me. This is Bonsert still learning how to write. Still developing his style.
yeah, precisely.
And that's something I try to also get through to aspiring writers. If you want to publish, you need to write. And you need to get your publishing out there. And
uh,
as you also, I hope people get off this stream, you need to have a lot of books to sell. Because you cannot
yeah,
sit. Well, I mean, I've seen like people sit at a table with just one comic or just one book, and you know, uh, one customer can only buy one book from you. But if you've got three books, a single customer can buy three books from you.
yes,
So you'll triple your profits doing that. And
yeah,
a lot of aspiring writers think their first book is gonna be their magnum opus. Um, no, folks, no, it doesn't
precisely.
work that way. That's
It
why.
doesn't.
That's why my goal is to eventually have 20 books. And what number am I now? I kind God, my well, it's kind of, well, I've got a strange relationship with Het and Cross Steampunk Publishing at the moment, but I ordered a bunch of books for them, like 5 of each, and it was like $176, including shipping. It's like, and yeah, that's 25 bucks. I had to order 25 books for them, so they have 5 of each.
Yeah,
It's so if the Casket Girl, Enwin should be done soon. I hope to have Casket Girls. Well, that's probably gonna be next year. So early next year somewhere, the Casket Girls is gonna be done because the art still needs to be done. We're already in September, so yeah. But yeah,
yeah,
that will
yeah.
be another 5 books.
Well, this is it. I mean, I finished writing my latest book back in May, and I thought, I'll easily have it done, edited, cover art designed, and all that kind of stuff, and have it published by Christmas. But then I started with house renovations and a few other projects,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, and it's also one of those sort of things where as soon as it gets to the winter, or as soon as it gets to the point where the autumn is here, I find it much easier to sit down and just get on with my writing, get on with my editing, and really enjoy it.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas when the weather's fine and nice, yeah, staying inside to sit by a computer is
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that does
I
not come
know.
naturally at all. So
Well, I'm now trying to pen like the comic book series, so in its entirety, um, like
no,
not entirely fleshed out. Like I've got like the issue 1 and 3, 2 and 3. I've got like lined out with the panel instructions, and I'm currently trying to. Right now I am writing the other parts in kind of like a prose format, um, just to speed up the process, and then I have to translate that back into panels.
yeah,
Um, so yeah, that's currently how I'm doing it. But I don't want to extend like 10 issues. Um, I mean, otherwise it's gonna cost the customer like €100 to get a full series from beginning to end,
yeah,
and I don't know the end yet exactly. So I'm still figuring that out. I'm still trying to figuring out the themes. I'm still trying to figure out the character arcs. Um, so what I can do with this particular cast. I mean, Havelaar is gonna be the main character, but the other group members also need stuff to do, and then need to have like their own little plot arcs and stuff.
yeah,
Yeah, and that's kind of where the whole where the whole difficulty with writing high concept comes in. Um,
yeah.
so I'm yeah, I need to focus on that, and that way we can also get some. So because I have no character portraits for the Kickstarter or anything at the moment, so that's also something I really need to work on. Um,
One step at a time, you'll get there.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
but I also want to, because I've got this whole to-do list stuff, and I'm still trying to figure out what kind of like additional merchandise I want to get for the Kickstarter as well. But then I look at the prices. For I was looking into fridge magnets, and it's like, yeah, okay, fun, but can I really sell fridge magnets for €5 a pop? I mean, it's not that expensive, but you still need to buy them by the 50, and
You do.
and then you gotta seem to get rid of them as well, and that's
Yeah. The same chap who I mentioned to you, Dr. Jeff, he's a lovely guy. He's like I say, he's been doing this sort of artwork, you know, artist for hire
yeah.
kind of
I
thing.
recognize the name. I'm not.
Yeah, yeah. You may well recognise some of his artwork when you see it, but he moved house. Oh, when was it? Uh, he moved house twice in the space of a few years. Once just before COVID, and then once to where he is now. And the amount of stock that he's got, it's just, and which the amount of stock that he needs, because like you say, he sells mugs with his artwork on, but he's got to order like 200 of them at a time. So, we would sort of give him as a starving artist. He doesn't have a lot of cash, but we would get together as a group of friends and give him a hand moving house, and it's carloads of stuff that he's got, stock that he's got, posters that he's done, leaflets,
Mm-hmm.
comics that he's done, mugs, shot glasses, posters, everything, and you just it's an entire day of just sort of loading these things into vans, then out of vans, and yeah, and it is one of those things where he's not bought it all in one go. Obviously, he gets sort of finishes a new comic and orders 1,000 copies, and then he'll get through those over the period of maybe a year or 2 years, and order fresh ones to sort of replacement the
I
copies.
really need to up my marketing game because, like, I'm like, oh, I've got 30 books. Oh my god! It's like, you know.
Well, it just takes time. Certainly, if he's any indication, he works very hard. He does portraits for people, when he's actually sat at his stall, all that kind of stuff. And they're all like slightly comic, but he's a very hard-working artist. And
You have to be, otherwise you can't make it as an artist.
yeah,
You
precisely.
you
So,
expect like 10-hour work days. I mean, that's
oh yeah,
kind of
yeah,
already what
but
I'm doing because I'm working, 32 hours a week, and then I do the
yeah,
book like almost full time, really.
oh,
So
precisely. But I mean, he had in his old house, he had an entire bedroom that was just shelved out, floor to ceiling, for stock, and that was it. And there was still stuff piled up on the floors. So, and that is just the nature of things.
yeah.
It pays off in the long run. It's
I
people
mean,
will
yeah.
well,
Eventually, the soccer stalled, and then you gotta. That's the paradox about it. That's the strange thing about it. Like the same thing. I ordered those books. Like, okay, that's €150, but with a little luck, I'll make €400 back. So,
yes,
um, but yeah, and then I had a very good event, and I pulled in over €1,000, which is a good thing because I need to pay my artists for the comic stuff.
yeah, yeah,
And
yeah,
meanwhile, the revenue service demands that you make a profit. So,
yeah, exactly. And this is where I think sort of the audiobooks come in, and any other formats that people are interested in. If you can take the content that it might take you several months to create, and then another couple of months to edit, and artwork that you've had to put together for a paperback, for an ebook version,
mhm.
or whatever else, and then you can reuse all of that,
it, I
and
would
with
be
just
making so much money if I didn't spend so much on art.
Yeah, yeah. But if you can reuse that artwork to create a new format
Well,
and open
that's
up,
where I want to go. You
yeah,
know
yeah,
that but I I want like normal day-to-day activities for art. That's so I can make videos like, oh, this is life in arcology. This is people arguing in a conference room. This is people arguing in the street. This is a battlefield in this world. This is soldiers fighting what type of monsters whatsoever. And maybe then a comics book page worth of art for original content for that
yeah,
particular video. And I mean, you can make so much awesome stuff with slides. There's one YouTuber I follow called Black. The channel name is Black Pants Legion, but the series is
oh,
called Text Talks BattleTech, and
yeah,
it's just these awesome community made videos where they just talk about a single war machine from that setting, and that's kind of where I would like to go.
yeah,
Um,
yes,
for
yes,
example, just talking about factions. That's something that because my series, despite being cosmic horror, it doesn't have any cults or anything like that. Well, apart from right now, the only one that I fleshed out is what are they. I mean, I made a list of suggestions for organizations, but that's it. It's just a list with ideas and the general idea I have for them and their motivations and their relationship to the association. But there's no actual lore for them.
yeah, yeah. I mean, it's it's like all these things. You've just got to. You can't flesh everything out in one go before you publish a single thing. You've got to do it gradually. So you will get there. But and there will be a time when you need that information. You need to refer to
Mm-hmm.
it, and you will flesh it out. But
Mm-hmm.
that's just
Book
part
by
of the
book.
the entire sort of process. It would be lovely to be able to decide to be an author and have the free time and the liberty to be able to sit down for a couple of years and create your universe and write your stories within it with all the background material that you want.
Mm-hmm.
But very few people, I imagine, are in that position. So yeah. Anyway, we've been rambling on.
Yeah.
Um, I
Well,
well,
people are
I
still
still have a
watching, so
load.
they're apparently enjoying it. But that's
Well,
okay.
it's very kind of them. I hope they have. And however, I am well aware of the fact that I've still got a load of tools which I need to put away, which are currently strewn around on the ground outside my garage, which is behind a gate and all that kind of stuff. But I'm sure the cats and foxes will be looking at them very suspiciously right now
Yeah,
and wondering what
probably.
they are. So I need to disappear. But it's been really good talking to you, Bonsart.
Yeah, yeah. It's
Feels
been a
like it's been a
while.
while. Yeah,
Next week I'll have one of the authors of Ekram to talk about how he turned his setting into a role-playing game. So
yeah,
he's an author, and yeah, I'm picking his brain for like what I should do. And as I said, Sean has made some progress, so I hope to learn more about that very soon.
yeah.
Um,
Well, I will have a chat with Jeff and see if we can figure out a date when he can join us and come and
yep.
talk to us a bit about his creative outpourings as well as his experience of
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
conventions and events and selling and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah. God.
so yeah, cool.
Yeah, it's kind of demotivating to be honest to talk with people who sell that much numbers, and
Oh yeah, yeah. It's
it's kind of like,
it,
oh god, like, oh my god, look at your Kickstarter pulled in 3,000. Yeah, meanwhile I'm talking to an artist who made like over $100,000.
No, he's nowhere near that level.
Anyway,
Like I say, he,
Peter, it was great talking with you. As for the
yeah.
people in the chat, like I said, if you are not yet following the Kickstarter, that would be greatly appreciated. Again, if you want to read my short stories, you can read them on Ring Stories, which is also linked in the chat and down in the description. Please become a follower there as well. It will really help me algorithmically. And of course, don't forget to like, subscribe, leave a comment, and your own experiences or your own questions. If you've got topics that you want us to discuss during the show, let us know. And like I said, next week we're gonna have a author who turned his series into a role-playing game like 16 years ago, like really long ago. He's a veteran. Again. So, yes. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to bid you adieu. And as always, make things your way. Good night.